Welcome back to Spotlight. I want to welcome my guests, Shayna Smith, Elton Calwood, and Natalia Wheatley, Shawanda Uhuru from the People's Patriotic Alliance. Welcome to Spotlight.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Yes. I don't know where to start in this program, but Eugenia O'Neill, and she was on, I think, Look at the Community a couple of nights ago, I think on the weekend, Friday, Saturday night. And she sent me a list, and I was shocked, of all the crimes that was committed on Main Street from February to August. February, O'Neill Sporting Goods Store, 2 break-ins. Man mugged by two guys coming through, alley by RG. Hajj Plaza, Quality Machine, 2 break-ins. That's in February. Match, Coy's attempted break-in. In man pulled from his car, struck in his gold chain, taken, wrote him at his church yard. That's 9 o'clock in the morning. True Style Boutique break-in, Smith Score break-in, Bamboo Shape break-ins, 2 break-ins, attempted break-in, 1 attempted break-in, Puzzles break-in, St. George's School, 2 break-ins, Le Grand Cafe break-in, June, Archibald, Smith Gore, Sonny Caribbean, Tadman and Company, Samacan, attempted break-in. This sounds like a crime. This sounds like an epidemic.
It is.
College Bakery, 2 break-ins. August, True Style Boutique, Curry House break-in, attempted break-in in several houses in Lower Main Street, UP Cineplex, Mass Gunman, Upper Main Street, murder, robbery. What are we going to do about crime?
Wow. You know, that's interesting that those statistics aren't out there in terms of, we have a definition for crime, and this is something involving a gun or, somebody being murdered. We're not looking at that problem. That's a big problem that has been there for a very long time.
For a long time.
And no action has been taken in terms of what is the strategy going to be in terms of addressing that.
That's why I want from y'all running.
Okay. Well, today's topic was pose a question.
Yes. I want to take it, and it's just being specific. In 1997, I opened my first business, which was an education corner down in Royal Reef Plaza. And about 2 months after opening that place, we got broken in. The police in 1997 came and they dusted for fingerprints. And to this date, no one was found. To this date, they are still dusting for fingerprint and doesn't have a bank to which to match it to buy. They go to match it to buy those who have been caught before. Dealing with crime here, at those kind of crimes specifically, I think it's necessary to put a fingerprint law in place. If you are coming in for a work permit, you're fingerprinted. If you're getting a driver's license, you're fingerprinted. If you're getting a passport, UK or BVI, you're fingerprinted. If you are going to high school and you reach a high school age at age 11 or 13 and you have a school ID, there's a fingerprint on it. Work permit, I think I said already, you get fingerprinted. If that starts today, the 6th of September, I guarantee you by the 6th of September next year, we'll have just about 100% of everyone somehow fingerprinted. This way when you start dusting for these kind of crimes who have broken in, you have a bank to match it by, and then you can start solving these crimes, because they're not just a list of crimes that she gave there. She also gave a list of crimes that are unsolved, because I received the same list. And the whole issue for me is the unsolved crimes. Perpetrators out there are still running free to do it again.
So how are you going to solve the crime? How are you going to solve the crime problem?
Well, we got to start in terms of looking at our law enforcement agency, what's happening with our police force. A few years ago, they received a raise, and there was a stipulation on there about having a 3-year strategic plan in terms of improving basically the performance of the department. I'm not too sure what became of that or even what the goals were. But I think one of the key things which we have been talking about on the campaign trail is about planning. We see problems, but we never go back and say, how are we going to tackle them in a comprehensive manner? And say, what are the causes and how do we need to tackle them? Because we might say we want more patrols, but that doesn't necessarily prevent persons from now trying to break into businesses. We need to look at security, at the businesses. Do they have enough security? Do they need to be enhanced? And what can be done to ensure that? I know measures were taken as far as, again, the closed circuit TVs, adding additional lighting around town. But again, these statistics seem to just be on a file someplace and it's not being actively addressed by the investigation unit. We only hear about drug crimes or things that are related to, you know, injury with a person or with gun crimes. So the focus, basically we're saying the focus has to change, and those who are responsible for policing in the country, we need to hold them accountable in terms of what is the strategy in place, and if there's not one, to have one in place in terms of tackling this situation.
I could add, I would like to sympathize with all those business owners and people on Main Street, and not just Main Street, the entire territory, who have suffered from this epidemic in our community called crime. And crime will have is having a tremendous impact on our territory, and it could hurt our economy. It could hurt us in terms of our own health, losing loved ones and whatnot, and it's something that has to be addressed quickly. But there is no quick fix to crime. You can't simply speak about just installing some cameras or doing some foot patrols. You have to take a comprehensive view of the crime problem. We in the PPA, we speak about being tough on crime, but also tough on the causes of crime. And when you're looking at some of the causes of crime, you have to look in your social development area, you have to look at education, and you have to look at the economy. Social development, our societies are governed by social values. Now in the past, when we had virtually no crime, our social values were very positive. You know, we had a lot of love in the community, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. You know, love your neighbor. We were governed by these type of, we used to help each other. The whole community knew each other. Now, presently, we have much different values. Values that are, you know, much different than the ones we knew in the past. Very negative values. So while we're telling young people not to steal, a parent might be trying very hard to get the young person to have certain values. At the same time, that young person is listening to music that's telling them stealing is all right and is actually desirable. So different social values have come into our society, and everyone, education system, churches, the family unit. The family unit has a lot of problems. I mean, we could speak about this all night. But we basically have to ensure that our young people are learning the correct social values that will govern our relationship with each other.
Those are long-term solutions. The fact of the matter is that you just heard me read a list, and we having criminal activity going on in the territory almost every day now. So how are you going to reduce that development, that criminal activity development on the short term? Because we need to get that addressed and tackled right now, and we need crime reduction along with crime prevention. Of course, the long-term strategy is the social aspect and the educational aspect, and that's all psychologically and socially understood. But we have an immediate problem on our hands, and we need an immediate solution. Not necessarily a quick fix, but we need an immediate solution.
Well, the community, from my standpoint, the community, and you hear the police say this all the time, the community has to come together. This is why it's important that we're having a meeting on Main Street. And when the so-called Spanish-speaking community came together, you know, this is what we have to do. But it just can't be Main Street. It just can't be Spanish-speaking community. It has to be the whole territory. But we need real leadership from the communities. Because what is happening is the communities don't have the trust in the police, and many times to be able to come forward to the police and to tell the police what they know. Because a lot of people in the community know exactly what's going on. So intelligence is something that the police need to be able to solve these crimes, and this is something that the community has to come together. And I've even heard you speak about the community coming together to defend the community. You know, I know at the meeting, Mr. Black was speaking on it from a crime stoppers perspective. This is something that we need to rally the community behind.
But what's the role of the police?
It's
just like you're the community, the education system. We don't need a police force.
But that's one of the things too, where, you know, it goes back to, you know, we have an accountability problem in the BVA. People have responsibility for things, but they don't seem to be held accountable. So I think the first thing that needs to be done is that the police force needs to basically come to the community and give us their analysis of the situation and what they think needs to be done, as far as whether they need, and not always just about more officers, because you know that's kind of like, okay, let's just throw people at the problem. Let us know whether it's that we need better investigation resources, whether it's, you know, again, whether the businesses need to do more to beef up their security. Is it something where, again, if it's going to be more patrols, what is the strategy? Not just we're going to just put people on the street to randomly show up. Sometimes they don't come out. And, you know, so it's easy for the criminals to say, well, okay, after 10 o'clock, we have free reign in town. We can do whatever we want, because there's no real strategy as far as what's taking place. We have a National Security Council. We need to be hearing from them as far as what, again, is the strategy as far as internal policing in the country. What is being done? We are reacting to a situation that has developed over the last few months. And it should have been basically addressed from within that first couple months, because I'm sure last year the statistics were more or less the same.
Let me ask this question one more way. The People's Patriotic Alliance, what will you all be advocating if you are elected into the House of Assembly to reduce crime in the territory?
Like I just mentioned about being more specific, I like to deal with things right at its core. And the approach to this, first of all, like I said, you have to tool the police force with the necessary equipment necessary. For example, like I mentioned, the fingerprinting system. If you don't have a bank in which to start with, you can't solve the crime. The first thing is because they are trying. Efforts are being made. The community going to get together and we're going to rally. One we're going to do, we're going to say, well, we see who did it, so we're going to be able to inform the police more. But what, at the same time, if we don't see, what do we have if we do a fingerprinting system on it? That's specifically one way to do it. We have to get in place a fingerprinting system so we know who are among us. And if they commit a crime, we have a way of tracing them. It's right there in U.S. Virgin Islands, it's right there in America.
That's the criminal wearing gloves, Brother Calwood. They do
well,
get a fingerprint from.
That's
only the stupid criminals you're going to get fingerprints
no,
from.
that is one. Most of them still, at some point. Then there's the surveillance camera that was spoken about for years that are still not there throughout this area. For example, you might talk about town, and we're speaking specifically about town, but we're still in an island where people come here by plane or they come here by boat.
But you don't want break-ins. You know, I mean, you're talking after the fact. You're talking about trying to catch thieves
after they do it.
Yeah, we don't want people breaking in at all. We want, before they break in, we want to either catch them or we want to deter them from breaking in. What are you going to do to catch them while they're breaking in or deter them, stop them,
but this is the thing where there's subject matter experts that we are paying thousands of dollars every month that need to advise us as far as in terms of leaders saying these are the things that need to be done. Because the thing is that a lot of persons will try to answer that question and say, well, yes, we need surveillance cameras, yes, we need more beat patrols. But we don't know. It's the people who doing this job every day need to put a plan together so that it can be considered as far as these are the things that we need money to go towards. Because if you just put in a surveillance system and then there's no strategy behind of, okay, we're going to be reviewing these tapes. Because I could put in a camera and still go back and check the tapes, you know. Because you could watch a situation where criminals will not show up to a thing. Maybe me watching too much TV. But they case the place. They know exactly how the movement, when the owner closes, what's going on with the movement of money. So you see all these things supposedly on closed circuit TV. But if those things aren't being monitored regularly, and we are waiting until after the crime is committed to go back to the tape, that's a reactive approach instead of being proactive. So we need to know from the people who are living this job as far as what is it that their experience is and what they are proposing, not waiting for us to come and say, you know, go put in a closed circuit TV or, you know, have 15 patrols, you know, that type of approach. Because I'm very wary of us taking that kind of approach to the thing. It has to be those who are subject matter experts coming and putting forward a plan to the community and saying, these are the issues that we are seeing. These are the things that we think need to be done, and coming together now and saying, all right, this is what we're going to do.
But I want to add a point there, Joanne, because it's a very important point. The United States of America, who puts a lot of resources into the police and into the military, can't stop crime from happening before it happens. You have, you either living in a gated community where people who have certain problems don't live there, or you move away from the problem and you concentrate the problem into some poor area or whatever else. The United Kingdom, they can't solve crime before they happen. Nowhere in the world will you be able to solve crime before it starts to happen. There's no, I'm going to repeat it, it's no quick fix to the problem. We have criminals being created every day, and it has to do with the values that they have. If I'm walking on the sidewalk and an old lady is walking close by me, there's no way that, of course I'm not going to do it when a police is passing. You know, if I have the opportunity to, and I have the values that will tell me to do it, I will do it. So it's upon us as a community to ensure that these young people who are coming up, who are like, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, why is it that when they become 18 or 19 years old, they are behaving in this way? And if we cannot stop them from taking on some of these negative values, then they will create a terror in this community. If we cannot make sure they're gainfully employed, they'll become a terror in this territory.
I want to move on from this.
I just want to stop before you move on, because you twist the question a couple of times, right?
Time on it now.
You got to understand something here. You said you want to stop the crime, but we have to admit that it has happened. It has been happening. We have staggering statistics that has been happening. The situation now is for it to be reduced to a point where it's probably non-existent, if that is possible. So when dealing with this issue here, we have to look at what has happened and what we have to put in place now so it doesn't happen again. Because you can't operate like it never happened. It is happening, and it's probably going to happen tonight. God forbid. We have to now put things in place that can prevent it or reduce the amount of criminal activities in our territory.
I think it was last year, one day 46 young people were processed through the criminal justice system.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And we want to know from a social development perspective, what is the PPA going to do to help the young people to not get themselves involved in those types of activities, and help them to develop and have meaningful lives, and not go into crime, and not behave antisocially, teenage pregnancy, high school dropouts, all the social ills, substance abuse, domestic violence, relationship violence, all the things that young people are getting into now. From a social development standpoint, what is the PPM going to do to mitigate those circumstances? We're going to answer that question. The PPA, right?
Yeah.
That's you. That's you guys. What the PPA is going to do to mitigate those situations that we find developing in our territory right after these words from our sponsors. Keep it locked right here to Spotlight.
Spotlight is brought to you by CCT Global Communication, Data Pro, Orion Law, Clarence Thomas Limited, Virgin Island Motors, and Bolo's Wholesale Cash and Carry.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Edjuenka, and I'm here with the People's Patriotic Alliance, and we're going to open up the phone so you could ask them questions. We're going to talk about social development, education, healthcare, economics, and give you an opportunity to question them and make them give you the answers that you want so that you could decide whether you're going to vote for them or not. Social development, we left up, talk about social development and what we are going to do. Where are the programs going to come from? What are you going to advocate for? How do you want to get the values in the kids' minds and prevent them from getting into antisocial behavior?
I think one of the things that we do well here in the BVI is we have a lot of programs. And what we need to do specifically when we start to deal with youth and the development of our youth is we need to take some of these programs and analyze if they are being effective in what we're doing. So for example, Big Brother, Big Sister program. That's a very good, solid program in terms of, partnering at-risk young people, or even persons, if their parents feel that they need a mentor, they can put them in. And make sure those programs are well-funded, that they can reach a broad cross-section of our young people. And especially those that tend to fall between the cracks. We have programs such as YEP. When you go into the history of YEP, YEP was supposed to be expanded across the territory, not just in the one that's there now, but it wasn't a priority. And that's where, as a result of that, the money wasn't put towards that. So before we create any new programs, we need to analyze the ones that we do have that are publicly funded, see if they're being effective in what it is they want to do. we also need to look at what the data is telling us. You know, is it that kids are coming from broken homes? Is it that, you know, they have academic challenges as a result of that? All of that, those things are starting to manifest in bad, you know, negative behavior, and not just be focusing on locking them up, because we also need to have a strong rehabilitation program, you know, in the system that brings them back. Because, you know, we like to think that they're too far gone at some point, but at the end of the day, it's either we're going to accept, you know, some level of criminality and say that, you know, we can't save this one, but we have to try. We have to try. And that is one of the areas where we don't see the effort that needs to be placed on rehabilitation, as far as, especially with our young people, those that have, you know, are in the system. And a lot of them are repeat offenders, and that's the bad part about it.
Yes.
Because we allow them to keep going until they get old enough to get put in prison.
To that point, I think it's important that I spoke about the social values. We have to be able to evaluate in our community who is not internalizing the positive social values. We could do that through the education system. And a lot of times in the education system, you start to see young people with social challenges, but yet it's never addressed until they get old enough, and then that's when you want to put them in prison. So we have to have some type of intervention program. So early on, when young people are starting to display negative type behaviors, you prevent them from doing the crime. And as Shayna said, when they actually commit crime, you have to put them within a facility where you can rehabilitate them and put them back out into society.
People the community generally blaming parents, or the politicians blaming parents. It's interesting because it's like we blaming ourselves, but we're not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
You know, because when the politician blaming the parents, the politician is a parent.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when one parent say, the other parent say, doing it, they are all parents.
Yeah.
So we blaming ourselves, not realizing it.
Yeah.
So, if as a elected representative, what you're going to advocate for, what you're going to attempt to do to get parents better equipped. Since everybody seems to think that the parents need to do more to raise their kids, and if it's not happening, obviously it's got to be something that's missing. Is something missing? And if something is missing, what y'all going to do?
Here's a controversial topic, because we're caught in a cycle where persons will tell you that we have children having children.
Yeah, hold on, guys.
Hold on, brother.
So as a result of that, they're not equipped. And that is one factor in the cycle. But yet, we don't want to have things like sex education in our schools. So that we can give our
Hold
children...
on, please. Hold on a second.
We can give our kids basically information to make wiser choices. Because whether we want to admit it or not, they're out there doing what they do. Okay? So we have to break the cycle that is happening. And a lot of it, I think, is coming from teenage pregnancies, where you had like a younger parent that's out there. And whether or not they're equipped with the skills, there are parenting classes that social development does, I know. But when you speak with the officers, they're telling you there's very low attendance. So we need to identify in terms of incentivizing, you know, understanding that you might know something, but there's always room for improvement, and how we would address them. I think we need to just have a parent forum and talk to the parents and find out what's going on.
Let's go to the phone. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Yes. I want to question for the man, the blue teeth. Listen to me. I Hispanic girl. How you represented for the Tortola BBI? Are you candidate? Are you have airing? How you explain? Suppose if you candidate, you know, suppose to get the airing. How you take for the child, what you represent it.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much for that call. Okay. And let me see if I think I understand that she's talking to you.
Yeah.
And you're wearing an earring, and how are you going to be a candidate and wearing an earring? What kind of example are you setting?
Well, for me, it's nothing negative about the earring. It will not impact my ability to do whatever. So it's not really worth addressing. I think we need to deal with some more substantive issues.
Okay. I mean, there's a cultural aspect to the earring, but if you don't want to address it, that's fine. You know?
Yeah, it's not worth addressing, really.
No. Okay.
It won't impact on my ability to do whatever task I need to do.
Okay, cool. you talk about, and we talk about social development, and you talk about teenagers having children, and having a forum with the parents to see what they need. What we are going to do when if prevention, trying to prevent the teenagers from getting pregnant is one thing, but when they get pregnant, they still have to raise those kids.
Yeah.
What you going to do for them when they get pregnant and have to raise those kids? How are we going to get them to raise better kids?
I think the education, the rule that is there now also about not being able to return to school after you've had the baby is something also that needs to be addressed, because we put teenage mothers at a disadvantage if they don't have the education to be able to get a job that will enable them to basically support their children. If they become in a single parent situation or their parents aren't able to support them as well as the grandparents, they will be required to get a job. So we have to revamp in terms of, again, looking at social values. Is it more important to ostracize a teenage mother, or after she had her baby, she has opportunity to finish her schooling? You know, and look at those things from that perspective, as far as what are those factors that are impacting how kids are being raised compared to when I was raised, 30 years ago.
I think what has happened and impact that is, when we look at things, we look at it from sometimes original source. If you have a population of 15,000 people, it might be easy to manage these social ailments. We have grown our population to the point where we don't even have the facility or the economic power to deal with all the social ills that are going on. Yes, I agree with Shana that we do have a lot of different programs for young people, whether it be YEP, whether it be Sandy Lane, whether it be Big Brother program. I mean, even down in the Caribbean area, we started last September a study hall program. But you can't accommodate the population growth that is there. And those who are not coming, even though you put those there, how do you reach them and get to them? Now, at some point in their development from cradle roll, there's this education system that's in there. So we have to now go back to that cradle roll, straight into primary school, into high school, and see how we can reform the education system in there with the involvement of parents. Not necessarily sending a textbook for $50, but more in depth about where that child is and picking it up.
This is early childhood education.
This is early childhood education I'm speaking about. And picking it up from that stage. You understand me? Getting trained teachers and trained professionals. So we're talking not just about the children, or educating the adults who will be more versed in picking up these ailments even before they get to that level. Because the 10-year person now might be the one 10 years from now doing what is happening now.
Let's answer the phone. Thanks for calling Spotlight. Go ahead, please.
Yes, good evening. I would just like to make a comment on what Ms. Smith just said.
Okay, speak a little louder, please, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to make a comment on what Ms. Smith just said about the young ladies not being allowed to go back to school. Anybody listening to her was saying that it is a dead end for them. That's not true. There is the alternative classes. There are classes given at the Elmwood South High School at night. So while she will not be able and to go during the day, there is classes from, I guess, from 5 o'clock or whatever until. But this is a society something. You put it out there, Ms. Smith, to the community. You have every church group, every PTA saying no. But a system has been provided. This afternoon, they were telling you to call teachers to leave them alone for people who should sign up for the alternative classes, and you can go and get your, well, I don't know if it's a high school diploma, but you will get something so that you wouldn't drop off the end of the wall because you made an error and got pregnant. So I think, people should know that it is not the end of the world for the young lady, because she can go back to school at night. Maybe she might even be able to get something to do during the day. If she has a good relationship with her parents who will be willing to put the baby to her, that she can attend school at night. People should know that there is an alternative, and not saying that when she gets pregnant, forcing she's just thrown to the wolves. That is not true. I think people should know that, and I would like to say that what you just said, you should qualify it, because there is the alternative schooling that she can attend. again, that's nice.
Right. Thank you very much for that call. Yes. Okay. So there are programs.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I taught at the alternative education program. But it's something where the persons that I came across were persons that probably were years after the fact, you know, that they had the opportunity or they knew about the opportunity to come back. So when I look at, you know, a 14-year-old on the side of the street with a baby in her arms, those aren't the persons that we see coming into the thing. At least when I was there. This was about 2-3 years ago. So there is that program, but I'm glad that the caller raised it too, because this also brings the point, which is one of the things that we are advocating for as far as trade schools or technical institute. Yeah. That if they don't go back into the academic system, that they are able to go to a vocational institute and get a trade. So whether it's to become a seamstress, a cook, may go into, you know, a chef, whatever the opportunity is, as far as having a career, they still have a career opportunity afforded to them through an alternate path in the education system, and in addition to the alternate education program.
So the PPA shares the view, like everybody seems to share, that you need less of an education to be a tradesperson than to be a lawyer or doctor.
That's not
Is that
true.
what I'm hearing?
No.
That's what I'm hearing PPA say.
No.
If you can't make it in academia, you go down a trade.
No.
What we are saying,
definitely not.
What we are saying, let me address it. What we are saying is what we have seen, and I have experienced as a student at the Beaver High School. There's two limits. You're either intelligent or you're dunce. There's no middle ground. You're either of level 50 or you're level 51. There's no middle ground. And when you end up in a level 41, for example, you get this stigma that was always there, and I still understand it's still there today, where you are considered dunce because you can't make it on arts and science or a stenography or info technology. And if you put that in children's mind that they fail to, you know, excel at the level, you automatically, you know,
just hold off a minute, please.
You automatically damage them psychologically. So they in turn take themselves as a failure, drop out of school, and then start these criminal activities. That's a domino effect of how things happen. So what we are saying when we talk about trade schools or scale-based education through curriculum reform is that we understand that everybody has the ability to learn. And if you study to be a plumber, you shouldn't be treated as a plumber as being less than a lawyer, because the plumbers in our territory are making $110 a day. You understand? Being an entrepreneur, not being a receptionist in somebody's office. You understand? So we are not saying at all that it equates to the other.
Okay, let me answer the phone. Thanks for calling, Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Yes, good evening. How are you?
We are fine.
We are fine.
Thank you.
Okay, I want to ask Ms. Smith a question.
Go right ahead, please.
Okay.
A couple years ago, my son was going to primary school, and I realized that after primary school, the kids go from there to the high school, and they do not teach sexual education at the primary school level. The reason I'm saying this is because when they get to high school, they don't really do it, or sometimes it's a little too late. Okay? Do you think, I'm just asking your opinion on this. I just wanted to know if you think or agree with me with the fact that maybe we should start teaching the kids about sexual education before they enter the high school. Because I was told that it is not the school's responsibility. Now, I went to high school in St. Thomas, and we, at junior high level, which would be what you would call 7th, 8th grade, and the age was between 11 to 13, we were being taught that. Okay, so my question is, do you think that something should be done to education of these kids so that they don't enter that teenage pregnancy level?
All right, thank you very much for this call. Yeah. Sexual education in early, in just beyond, just the later stage in primary school.
When I was in high school, right, again, alluding to what LT said, the level 31 was where they taught sexual education or some sort of human physiology. I did biology, we didn't touch that. But it is something where I'm not saying that it's necessarily all about sexual education. What we have to be looking at is in terms of relationship, life skills, how to interact with people, how to deal with yourself in a relationship. Because the kids come on a lot of peer pressure, and you have to be educated in terms of making right choices.
Yes.
And it is something that even if it's taught at home, it is something where if they learn more, they get a different perspective, it's only to their advantage. So I'm not a child psychologist, so I wouldn't know what age we should start educating our children at. I wouldn't go and guess on that. But it is something that if we feel that teenage pregnancy is an issue, and is it that, how do we address that problem? Because we need to tackle it, because it's trickling down into the society as far as the parenting skills, whether or not the parents are equipped enough, and is that a factor of their maturity? A 14-year-old versus a 25-year-old parenting is going to have a different result.
Do we need more recreation facilities for young people, or we need some different kind of facilities? Answer that when we come back after this word from our sponsors.
This program is sponsored by the law firm of J.S. Archibald & Co. and by the trust company J.S. Archibald Trust Services Limited, both of Roadtown, Tortola, BVI.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Edgy Renka. I'm here with the members of the People's Patriotic Alliance, Shayna Smith, Elton Calwood, and Natalia Shawundo Uhuru Wheatley. And the spotlight is burning them. and we'd like to hear from you, so give us a call. Politicians talking, or I should say all of y'all who want to get voted for, talking about kids need recreation facilities, and it seems like that's all kids need is things to play.
Yeah.
So that so that they don't get involved in mischiefs, we give them something to play or some ties to play with.
Yeah.
What do you think that the youth need in order to develop? Do they need more recreation facilities? What are the facilities or programs you think they may need?
Going around from the community from Anigara going through, I see areas and the persons have raised their concerns about recreational facilities needed in their area. Even in Vojingara in the valley and out in North Sound, things are needed for those, for the young people. But I think what was very positive, besides the play and the, things that would keep them occupied, is a learning environment. In Caribbean, like I mentioned earlier, we started down in the Adventist Youth Center a study hall program. And that's for everyone within the community, including even in Capone's Bay and Owen West End. They come in the afternoon and do their homework. It doesn't mean that you have to be a struggling student. You can be a strong student helping a weaker student, because that interaction with the students and students limits or dullens the intimidation of the fear of, I don't want to tell the teacher, no, I don't know. Sometimes you have those students who are afraid to show that they don't know.
Yeah.
But because they are now with their peers, they get a better understanding also when they're explaining the algebra or the social studies. They get a better understanding because their peers is explaining to them. So I think in King Garden Bay, I think up in Mayors, over in Bellevue, over in Long Look, and then you go up in the eastern area, in the Valley Vojingara, in North Sound, in Anigara, in Jos Van Dyke, in these key areas, even in Roadtown, have study hall programs. Yes, we have the afternoon program that the caller alluded to for those students who have dropped out. We are talking about those who are in, want to be in, but the system is just like it's just coming down like a break on them. The study hall, studying in a hall with your peers would alleviate. I would advocate to have more study hall programs. The one in Caribbean is a volunteer program. You understand? And it can go on throughout the territory.
And to add to that, before we talk about additional facilities, we need to look at the ones that we have, because we're not doing a very good job of maintaining them. When you go to some of the gyms, like Bellevue Gym, the fields in the different communities, they're not being maintained well. So even those that you have, you're not able to utilize them to the level that you would want to. Whether it's a team wants to have practices, or someone just wants to go out and have a soccer game amongst friends. We need to look at investing in maintenance of what we do have, and also to encourage, whether it's for the community to use things like the community centers to bring about community programs, and not necessarily it have to be initiated by the government. Because as LT mentioned with the study hall, that's an excellent idea. My mom had a tutoring program that she started down in West End, you know, that was there for the kids that they could come over and do. So it is that we have facilities. I think we need to be better use of them so that we can have a different outcome, and not let it just be about, you know, we have to force these things, because the community has to take up and say, listen, this is my community center built with my tax dollars, and I want to use it for X, Y, Z to better my community.
Yes.
To Shayna's point in terms of making better use of the facilities, I concur with it wholeheartedly. I think we have a habit of just building facilities. It's very political, you know, to say in an election you're going to build this and you're going to build that. But the reason why they're not being utilized properly is because we're not bringing the programs. Every village, in my estimation, my colleagues I'm sure agree, every village should have an education plan or education program, a health program, social development program, and whatever other type of environmental program. And the facilities are only a means of being able to facilitate your actual plan for your district.
Yeah.
And so it's community-based, like Shayna said. It's if you have to partner with government, you partner with government. You know, of course, your district representative should be a part of it as well. But these things should be community-based, and we only use the facilities, build facilities to facilitate that plan.
Yes.
Economics. The Premier gives some figures, some alignment figures the other day in the House of Assembly. When you add the 3 years up from 2008 to 2010, we have overspent by $147.9 million. 62.9 in 2008, 56.9 in 2009, and 29 in 2010. And we don't know about this year yet. So as far as it sounds like, you don't have no additional money to spend on none of these things that you're talking about. So, and people losing their homes and people losing their businesses is slow, you know, everybody complaining.
Yeah.
What you gonna do?
Well,
How you gonna jumpstart the economy? How you gonna get money in the coffers to all the programs in the community centers? You might have to sell some of the community centers.
Being an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and being in this economy, I am feeling, I know so many of, you know, my colleagues are feeling, I go to them from time to time to collect money and they can't pay up either. What's the first thing you do? You start to look at your expenses, and you start to tighten the belt. You cut where you cut. Because you see, we got to understand, first of all, a tough time don't last. Tough people
Where
do.
you gonna cut?
What we going to cut? Wasteful spending.
Okay.
First thing is wasteful spending. We know we can sit down here, we can list a whole lot of things that are being spent on wasteful spending. Second, we're going to have to prioritize. If we're going to spend $4-point-something million to, you know, to fix a gut when our education system is still, then you know people are going to complain because the money's not being spent wisely. So we can look and target the monies in the right direction. Once we have cut wasteful spending and be more efficient, in other words, we are saying we need to be leaner, but not meaner.
So we don't need any more money in the territory. We just need to be.
When we have-
we just need to
No,
be
we're dealing with four
effective.
steps first.
We just need to be effective in spending
No,
what we
it
have.
starts there.
We are doing
It
first
starts
things
there.
first. First thing is you have to cut, like I'm saying, as an entrepreneur, you cut. When you have cut, you have to have a plan now of how you're going to bring in new monies. You understand? And then that's where the economic plan come in. How are we going to bring in these new monies?
How are you gonna bring in new money?
One, we got to now look at the, first of all, that's simple. And I'm going to tell you what's simple. We can pass a law that you must wear a seatbelt about 3 years ago. It's mandatory. You can pass a law that you can't drive and talk on your cell phone. Why can't we pass a law that recycling is the law? When in fact in this new technology, where the whole world is going to green technology, there's so much jobs and so much wasteful spending at the same time. So you're not only going to cut the waste, but you'll be creating more jobs within that new economy. So that's where it starts. It can start right there. Then you can go on to tourism. You understand? And you can see, you can even deal with the water and sewage situation, and there's money within there. Why is it that we have boats in our territory, right? Still dumping their waste in the water. Why didn't somebody just think on me, maybe if I get a barge, I can go out and meet these boats out there and take their waste. This is a business for $10 a load, And that's a new business. That's driving up new small business when you know the small business is the driving force of our economy. So the next step we have to look at is how do we rebuild our small business sector? Not necessarily by a small business program, but you ask them what's the problem. And I could tell you what they are. They have problems getting loans. They have problems meeting the rent because the market value from 2 years ago has gone from $13 a square foot to somewhere up $24 a square foot. So if I'm going to open a business selling sunglasses, how much sunglasses or how much blind people have to have for me to make the rent?
Sure.
You understand? So now we have to now look at legislation that can cause the banks to lower their interest rate to, one, bring down the rent for landlords, even on apartments, and get us in a position to be more able to afford a small business loan to go forward on our own. These are economic things that would boost this economy from day one, once you put those things in place.
And
any other comments on it?
yeah, and that's one of the things, the key things that we are talking about in terms of economic development. It has to be not just about job opportunities, but business opportunities. We have people come into the BVI every day, and they see business opportunities, they go, they come back, and they make them happen.
Yes.
We use the example of the drinking water stations that cropped up over the last 2 years. And trust me, he is making money because it's something where if you look at basic necessities that people have to have, it's going to become a lucrative venture. The question now is whether or not all local people have that business mind. Do they have the resources that they can tap into? A small business bureau was started in trade department, but is not fully staffed and has the resources. As LT mentioned about the financing of a business. So I have my business plan after I've gone to the business bureau. Now I need to get some capital to start up. You know, am I getting that support in the banks, or is it something that government needs to look about subsidizing small business loans? So those are things that need to be addressed. Cost of living and cost of business.
Y'all know that we don't print money here, right?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do that.
You know, we know that we don't print money here.
Yeah.
And these small business you want to start up, and all these business opportunities that you're thinking that's going to develop in the territory, there has to be money in the territory first before they are able to start up. To create a market for them to start up in.
Yeah.
The last figures I heard from the Premier was this year tourism, we had about 525,000 tourists. In 2007, we had 990,000 tourists.
Yep.
That is a drop off of approximately 40%. So that means there's less money coming to the territory to circulate, which means there's less of an opportunity for businesses to start up because they ain't got no money, nobody circulating no money in the territory.
It depends on the market. Let me finish what I was going to say though.
Yes.
So how are you going to start businesses and the money, they got money
question.
coming to the territory?
Let me finish what I'm going to say. In terms of services, you have tourism-related services, we have financial-related services. We also are thinking about in terms of diversifying the economy. When you look at the statistics, we're exporting a ridiculous amount of money to bring food into this country. Some of that food of which can be grown here or produced here. And those are, again, other opportunities in terms of a ready market because we're eating every day. In terms of if I start a business as not necessarily dependent on the tourist visitors coming, that will be able to sustain those businesses. When it comes to tourism now, what we have been advocating for is that we need to look seriously at reinventing the BVI experience. We need to look at, you know, when you come to the BVI, you're not supposed to be able to go any place else to get the things that you get in the BVI. And one of the things that we're very, you know, have a passion about is our culture. You know, what would that be like for us to have tourists come and have a cultural tour? When they come up, whether it's a cruise ship or overnight visitors. What about introducing things like ecotourism? I can come, I go hiking up through the guts. You know, we need to use the resources that we do have and produce something, because if we bring more people here, we still have to ensure that their experience keeps them coming back for another 5 years, 10 years.
Exactly.
And doing the things. I was happy to see that the tourist board, I was reading the paper, and that they have taken on some new marketing initiatives in the New York area. But, you know, looking at the U.S. economy, we need to also be looking at other markets that have strong economies, because, you know, if the analysts are right, the recession is far from over, but we're not saying it in the U.S., which means that we are going to continue to struggle because the persons that typically come and travel on vacation aren't going to be able to do that.
My point exactly. So where you going to get more customers from?
Bear in mind, the ones that are here are leaving to spend their money somewhere else. We have to create a marketing plan that's attractive to keep them here. We have to teach and train our entrepreneurs through the same business bureau on how to prepare a proper marketing plan, how to present and showcase your stuff, your produce, and make it ready. You also have to understand the market trend. This way you have a niche market within this market. People are leaving. We have to find a reason why they have to stay and not leave. Whether they're going for food, whether they're going for clothes, whether they're going for electronics, whether they're going for, simple vacation. There are places even here in the BVI. You go to Sabre Rock, to call one place, you still don't feel like you're even in the BVI. How much people know this? You go over to White Bay and you're sitting on the beach for a couple hours and you feel like, I'm in heaven. Is this really the BVI? It is the BVI. How many of us know that? We have a product that is there to be sold. How are we selling it? Do we acknowledge that it's being sold? And if it's not, we have to build the awareness that it does exist, because people come here, like Shana says, they see the benefit of it. How come all people are not seeing it? We have to open their eyes that it is there and make the allowances necessary for them to make the money off their own place.
I want to go to...
Could I just add to that point if
Sure.
you're not going to the phone?
Sure.
We're speaking about emerging markets as well. So
yes, hold on a minute, please.
I just wanted to speak about the Chinese market, because the Chinese government has signed memorandums of understanding with several Caribbean territories and CARICOM as a whole to help improve tourist arrivals from China to the Caribbean. In the same vein, they have established direct flights to Jamaica, planning for Bahamas. Countries like Brazil have direct flights now to Barbados, and other countries in the region are trying to tap into these markets, and we are going very slow in that direction. I saw the other day some Chinese ambassadors were here speaking about Chinese nationals living in the territory or visiting the territory. But these are opportunities for us to establish diplomatic ties with Chinese ambassadors and try to see if we could get some of those Chinese tourists and people from other emerging markets to travel here.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to the phone. Thank you very much for calling Spotlight. Go ahead, please. Yes, you're on Spotlight. Oh,
Did you just hang
I
up?
hung up on him.
Sorry.
Call back.
Sorry about that.
If you
I
switch over, we'll come back.
always do that. Okay.
Call back.
Yeah. A big issue in the economy is people being able to afford to live.
Yeah. Cost of living.
Yeah, cost of living is high, and rent is high, food is high, electricity is high, sending your kids to school is high. What are y'all going to do to bring the cost of living down in the BVI? Let me give this. I think this is the caller that I just cut off. I better answer the phone and let them talk right away. Thanks for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please. Go right ahead, please.
Hi. Since you guys are touching on tourism, I did some traveling last week. I sailed into St. Thomas. They had two cruise ships. And this was Wednesday. The BVI hasn't seen a cruise ship in almost a month. What is it that St. Thomas is doing? Why is it that we have 3 ship agents and none of them belong to government? If the PPA is successful, would they make the necessary changes within the tourist board to see to that it actually more helps the people of the BVI and not just the bigger hotels? I'd like to hear what you guys' plan is to help the tourism sector for the people of the BVI who need this in order to have a healthy living.
All right. Thank you very much for that call. Yes. Are you going to have a local business?
Very good question, caller. This is a question I've been asked when we sat at a taxi stand some days ago. Taxi drivers are very much enthused about the cruise ship, industry and increasing it. What we said there in that meeting was that we have no intention of reducing the amount of cruise ships that come here. And if we can improve by 2, 3, or even more, we will. But we have to first look at diversifying our tourist economy. In that, in the season right now, if you go to whether it's Treasure Isle Hotel, Sebastian, Quito's, or any other local hotels here on this island, they are telling you, even Long Bay Hotel, even in mid-season, the middle of the season, peak, they are only 75 to 80% capacity. Our intention is to grow our tourism economy through proper marketing in the right markets. That our overnight,
just a minute, please.
That our overnight guests, and the hotels are here are filled to capacities. Only when those are filled that we want to entertain the development of others. Next, in the diversification, we're going to talk about sports tourism. Athletes that are here consistently going away, we can build the facilities here and have them come here, because some statistics that Shana can share with you concerning the millions of dollars that can be spent in one weekend here with a sporting event will bring serious monies to this economy, other than just having music festival. And our approach to tourism is that even in the slow months, during college, my thesis was on a marketing research that entailed bringing persons from Europe to the British Virgin Islands. In that research, I learned that the people who are in Switzerland and above there are closed from the months of May, June, July, and even August. And when they travel by entire pack, from the grandparents down. We need to market in these jurisdictions, in these markets, because those are specifically our slow months. So if we are successfully marketing those things during these months when you see no ships are here, you don't have to necessarily worry about ships. But the hotels will be so full that the taximen will be busy dropping them for lunch, for dinner, to the beach, to whatever activities are going on with it. And also in this tourism market is to put emphasis on cultural tourism, where our natural monuments, whether it's the sugar plantation down in Carrot Bay, the Wen plantation or the Henderson plantation, the oldest church in this Western Hemisphere up at Mount Healthy, restoration of all these sites, whether it's in Aniguera, Just Van Dyke, all these. So when they come, they're not just coming to the BVI, but they're coming for the BVI experience. We can talk about this, and I can talk about this a whole night, but I'm going to let another person say something.
But just to summarize, so the underlying point is that we need to look about tourism from January to December. That if you don't have, the ships have their schedules, what is it that we need to do to ensure, if we can, have them come in throughout the year, as well as having additional streams, because sports is something that can be played all year round. Yep. And we have international recognition in most of our associations here in the BVI. So there's no reason being, if we put the necessary efforts behind what they're already doing, to give them the opportunity to go and bid for hosting a softball tournament, basketball, track and field. We have spring regatta. That's the perfect example of what you can do if you invest in the right areas.
Price control.
Needed.
Yes. Y'all support price controls. How are you going to get the cost of living down? Actually, I shouldn't have said price control. How are you going to get the cost of living down?
I think we need to start in terms of looking at the cost of living report that was done a few years back, and supposedly recommendations were made. From what I understand, there were some very good recommendations. I don't really know the specifics, but they're saying that at least if we start there, we need also things like consumer protection regulations in terms of, again, to mitigate prices. I don't think we're advocating for government to have our hands on in terms of managing the economy, but we need to create certain forces that would create that the businesses, incentives to give the businesses to reduce price. Because we talk a lot about reducing duty.
What kind of incentives?
Okay, let's start with duty. We talk a lot about duty, but when you look at the declarations, the freight is where a lot of those costs are coming from, businesses bringing in stuff. So
you're gonna give businesses a freight reduction?
Not necessarily. Well, we can't do that. That's the shipping company. So we need.
Not a freight reduction. A tariff reduction. A duty's coming in, not freight. A duty's coming in. You're gonna give the businesses a reduced tariff on their imports, so that they could have be more competitive.
We have to look at what would need to be done. But the freight, though, is a big cost in terms of transportation costs into the Virgin Islands. If you're bringing something into St. Thomas versus here, it's practically double.
The businesses are complaining that they have to pay duty on freight, insurance, wharfage, and something else. But how
Let me add as well. I think it would be important to help with a little bit more competition. Because we have the market, we need a mix of government regulation and market forces to get the right balance that we're looking for. We need more competition in shipping. Sometimes we need even to source our goods from different markets, because sometimes the goods are coming from China, going to the United States, and they have to do pay the insurance and freight and duty there, and then it's being shipped down here, and that's to additional cost. So if we could source our goods from the source market, where the goods are originating from, that will help. You know, Tropical can't really have a monopoly here. That's not going to benefit us here. And regardless of what the price is in St. Thomas, if they had more competition here, I bet you the prices, they reduce the prices.
You blaming the high cost of living and freight alone?
No, that's one factor.
No, we import a lot of goods, but it's also a high cost of doing business here in the BVI. As Elton said, rent is high, electricity is high.
Is that because we don't have enough competition?
Well, you have to make sure that competition is working in terms of, as you're speaking about, in terms of rental space. We have to make sure that we have rental space that's affordable. But where it's necessary, we might need government regulations to be able to help with the prices of certain key things.
And how would that work?
Let me explain. Let me explain it this way. Government has a responsibility to negotiate better for its people, and not necessarily being involved in giving the allowances. If I am in a space and I'm given a letter telling me that next year I have to move out, not I have to move out, telling me that the next year I'm changing the rent to market value. When you find out what market value is, it's from $13 to $24 an hour. You can, I mean, per square foot, right? And when you move, because you know you can't afford it based on your, you know, your accounts and your money's being made, you move, you realize a government office moved in there. Because our landlords know that I can get it rent for $24, $27 square foot because government is going to rent it. So government is partly responsible for the inflation in rent. Then we got the banks that are also responsible, because when First Bank and Banco Popular respectively have prime down at 4.2 or somewhere there, and in here in Tortola is 7 point something, and you go and you ask them the question why. It's the BVI. Why aren't we putting legislation to lower interest rates so that landlords, let's go to the houses and the apartments. People who build houses and put 2 apartments under it so they can get some easement on income on their 3,000 plus a month. You can't blame them for doing that. But if they have a lower interest rate, trust me, they might just lower their rent. So everybody wins. On top of it, I remember 2 or 3 elections ago, 2003 and 1999, the big issue was about whether we're going to build retaining walls or not build retaining walls, you know, and it's a waste of money for government spending on retaining walls. I want to be empathetic first. If a parent, even if it's 2 parents, and their monies are there for their children to make ends meet, to pay the mortgage, and the rain falls and the wall falls down, and they know they can't get a $60,000 loan because the debt equity ratio is so high that they can't get a loan, the only recourse they have is to do what they do: run to the government and ask for assistance. The government can say, you know what, we've been doing it for a while, you know, because we are responsible and we want to continue doing it. But if we lower interest rate, maybe they might have more disposable income to build back their own walls. That's where the inflation is in the price.
Okay. You gotta make your answer short. Okay. You gotta make your answer short. Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
Good night.
I just have one simple question for them candidates, right?
Yeah.
All that they say is well and proper and nice, okay? Very good point. But if the present at-large system is not working in the home, they are not effective at all for the country. Why do you guys think that you all will have such effect being at large and have to work with a government? Why you all think you all would be effective?
All right, thank you very much for that comment, brother. How y'all gonna represent as at-large representatives in the territory?
First of all, we're not playing party politics. I think a lot of the at-large representatives, if they are part of a party, they try to toe the party line, and then, you know, they want to give district representatives free reign in the district, but every district has 5 representatives. And I would expect for us as at-large representatives to meet regularly with the people and be able to represent the broad views across the territory, not just of one particular district. I know my colleagues could add to that.
Yeah, and the at-large system isn't that it's not working. Like we're seeing and everybody's observing. It's almost as if in some cases it's a tough war or it's party politics being played. If you get in there as an elected representative in a House of 13, policies come up that need to be voted on, discussed, debated. Your job and responsibility is to go in there and represent the people's views and present to them what their options are in terms of educating them, because that's a big part of being a political leader. You're supposed to make sure your populace is educated in what the issues are and what is being discussed.
Also, I want to add that, caller, I understand your point. A lot of persons have been saying it. Our role as at-large candidates is to build your faith back in politics by doing what we need to do and doing it right.
Let me go take a break before they put me off the air. We're going to come right back with more Spotlight and our candidates from the People's Patriotic Alliance right after these words from our sponsors. Don't go away.
Spotlight is brought to you by the National Bank of the Virgin Islands, the Radio Doctor, Totola Concrete Limited, and Varieties in Electronics.
Welcome back to Spotlight. We're going to go to the text because we've been getting a lot of texts, and I've been trying to get in the questions that we have to get in here. Okay, good night and nice panel. I agree with Shayna about the rehab because I have a brother who didn't grow up doing wrong, and how it hurts my head that he is just hanging on the block with his friends smoking and doing wrong. I believe that we can save these kids. Also, it is disappointing to know the prison doesn't have mandatory counseling or rehab for these prisoners. What do you think about that? Also, the airing is not a big deal. That caller is petty. Okay, so somebody talking about the rehab.
Yeah. There is something there. I had a conversation with Reverend Vanterpool, where he has some type of program there, but like she's alluding to, it needs to be something that's extensive.
Would you lobby for an alternative insurance policy, as Bupa is not beneficial at all? They don't like Bupa. Somebody don't like Bupa.
Well, they're supposed to be introducing a national health insurance scheme, but I think that's something that should have been debated much more with the community before implemented.
I agree.
Okay. Life skills is mandatory subject for all 1 to 3rd farmers at Emosal High School. This is the 3rd year it is being done. So they do have life skills in place. Is there something that perhaps you might look to enhance?
Yeah, we'll have to look at, how has it been performing? Is it meeting the objectives and go from there? Why is it? Is only 4th to 3rd?
1 to 3rd.
1 to 3rd?
Yeah.
So why not all the way up to 5th form?
It'd be interesting to look and see exactly what
it
is
is
teaching in there.
We have a challenge with labor and immigration departments. What, if any, are the PPA plans to ensure BVI lenders are given their fair share to secure and hold jobs in their country? What y'all going to do about labor and immigration to make sure that we get the jobs and hold the jobs?
First of all, we need policies. We need a real immigration policy, as Elton has been speaking about a lot. We need immigration reform. We have to have a real discussion with the community. As well with labor, we need labor policies, and this is important why we need representatives in there who represent our values and represent what we want to see in the economy. We come in and we sharing your ideas with you. You put us in there, and we'll, if you like what we say, and that's what we'll implement.
Unless the government decides and commit to investing in its human capital, the end result will always be social disequilibrium. We must commit to investing in our people from the cradle to the grave. This means supporting all families through things like universal access to their care. It means supporting families in place. It means instituting programs around community needs. Everybody understand what that's saying? Yeah. What are your views on the programs that you're going to need to support the families?
Well, we definitely alluded to in terms of community-based initiatives, which she touched on. Universal daycare has been something, again, that, cost of living is a factor where persons aren't able to afford daycare, and whether or not government should subsidize some type of program. So
Is
those
that
are
something- is that something that
things
you- is that
that
something
we have
PPA will
heard
support?
and would
We
look
look-
into
we
and
look into that
analyze.
definitely. Because we still don't want to do it in that situation where we create more like a welfare situation.
Sure.
We still want people to be independent.
A welfare situation. I
Much
mean, you call in helping single mothers, hardworking single mothers who all they need is to be able to help to place their kids in a meaningful daycare center that's going to provide a good early childhood development program for them so that you don't have crime. You call in that welfare
I
situation.
didn't call it a welfare situation. I said we don't want to have to create one. So we have to look into it in a way and study it, that we don't create such a welfare situation. People just find a dependency on it when they can actually do it for themselves. So we have to look at it and study it, so when we do implement it, it doesn't become another welfare situation.
And like Shayna said we have to review the programs that are there. We have to review. We can't make certain type of promises. You spoke about the amount of money that we have, but we could definitely say that we could look into it, and because it's important to and we're speaking about making sure that people have more money in their pockets. We've been speaking about that, so that they can afford to be able to pay for daycare. And whether we need to subsidize or not, we look into that.
Exactly.
One of the ways to say is to take back some of those traveling allowances from officers receiving it and still using government vehicles and pocketing the allowance. The whole issue of...
Well,
They're correct on that, because there is, from being in government and also being president of the CSA, we have situations where it's monitored, and then there are those who are still receiving it and still using the government vehicles. So we have to, when it comes to government spending, we need to overhaul the budget.
absolutely.
Yes.
And how we are spending and where we're doing our spending, and not just fund inputs but to fund results. So I'm not just want to allocate $252 million to keep government running. I need some results, and that's one of the issues where we have to change our perspective in terms of how we govern the country.
What PPA plan to do about the Parole Act? It's been passed almost 3 years now, and to date none of our people can benefit. And why an outsider is over a prison and he is a qualified and he is qualified for the
It's
I
not.
mean, he isn't.
and he is not qualified for the post. It's got a local who can run our prison. If elected, will the PPA put local first and question why the parole board is not appointed as yet? What you gonna do about the Parole Act? How are you gonna use it to benefit the prisoners and the people of the territory? Are you gonna put a local person over are you gonna attempt to put a local person over the prison who's qualified if you are elected?
We are going to look into all facilities in government, all departments in government. If there's a local that's qualified for it and there's a local not in that place, one of the things that we have continuously said in our name, people first, patriot second, means that the people looking out for their people, and that's our pledge.
I watched Let's Go today at about 1:15 p.m. The speaker said the House is adjourned until 2:30 p.m. I took my lunch so I can listen when they returned from lunch at 2:30. They actually came back at 3:05. What kind of what kind of example is that? These politicians blame everyone else for everything wrong except themselves. As these guys, how would they deal with the visa restriction? We are living in a global village. We are competing for the traveler's dollar. Do they know Chinese need visa and people with money don't like hassle? How would they address this issue? How would you address it, the immigration?
So is that specifically the visa regime, or is it just specifically for Chinese?
Well, yeah, I guess to facilitate tourists coming to the territory, how would you deal with the visa restrictions or requirements from these islands, from these countries that you plan to market to, in order to get them to have ease of access to the territory?
Well, it goes back again to looking at processes in your government, because when we want to turn something around in 24 hours, we turn it around in 24 hours. If we want to take 24 days, we can take 24 days. So it is something where it has to be stressed again in terms of service delivery in the government. It has to be bar none. And we understand the importance of it when it comes to, you know, whether it's a tourist or, you know, business visitor, that we need to deliver when we within a reasonable time frame, because we have certain things in place that we're not going to just say, well, we want the Chinese to come, so let's take it out. There's a reason why it's there, because not everybody we want to come. You know, so we have to make sure that we look more about performance in our government and doing the things that we need.
These facilities are already in place. For example, if you're doing a festival and you're bringing in entertainers from Jamaica or even from Guyana that needs visa, they are in here in time for your show and out based on the facilities that are already in place. So,
and we have to afford the Chinese the respect they deserve based on their place in the world, because we shouldn't be giving the United States and Europe a certain treatment, and then you have China, who is a recognized superpower now, who's given some kind of second-class treatment.
Good night. If elected, what would be the PPA plans for the agriculture industry?
Grow everything.
Eat paraquita and not chiquita.
What you say?
Well,
that's a good slogan.
Yes.
Agriculture is something that's really dear to my heart. You know, I, along with some others down Paraquita Bay, some years ago, put some real attention into growing some food down in Paraquita Bay. But when I was growing the food, or when I was going about the process, there were so many problems in place that were preventing farmers from being able to perform. So we need to solve some of the issues with water. I mean, we're able to give by water access to all of these wells. You know, I think that the farmers should have had access to those wells. The government promised to subsidize farmers' water. We haven't really seen them come through with that, but yet they spent millions and millions of dollars on a greenhouse, and there was no really proper plan for the greenhouse. We don't know how, you know, what the greenhouse is going to be selling, what the produce is going to cost, how much it's going to take to fund the operation. And so there was, you know, everybody else has to do a business plan. Why didn't we have a business plan for the greenhouses? So I think the monies could have been more efficiently spent with our local farmers, developing them. I even think about Tropicana. How much money is Tropicana making out of the territory? How much money is the imported chicken? How much money are we spending on imported chicken?
Millions.
We have Coy Smith down there with a chicken processing plant. Just imagine if all of those millions of dollars stayed in the BVI and was able to circulate in the territory and create jobs.
No one on the government side never thought of visit the prison. If elected, we all visit the facility, because to date, not even the minister visit the prison. Y'all gonna go visit the prisoners if you get elected?
I've been there in terms of, well, I was part of the project team that built the women's prison and detention center, so we were given limited access, but it is something that we would commit to go wherever it is we need to go, because like the caller or the text is alluding to, we have to be willing to get our hands dirty, know what the situation is on the ground, not sit down in your office under the air condition and get a report on your desk and make a decision based on that, but to go out, talk with people, find out what it is exactly is the situation, and go from there.
Healthcare. 50% of the population has one chronic disease or next. We got 5 minutes left. Got one chronic disease or the next. Diabetes, is,
Cancer, hypertension.
Yeah. What's the name of dialysis treatment? Kidney failure. It's costing us $250,000 a month.
A month.
A month.
Wow.
Yeah. And so we can't afford healthcare. What's your healthcare plan?
Well, we have to deal with prevention and the cure. And prevention, you're talking about exercise and you're talking about eating properly. We are speaking about recreational facilities. I think every person in a village should have access to some place that they could go walking safely without worrying about a car running them down. They should be able to go and run on a track and get at least 30 minutes of exercise every day. We have to make sure that good food is affordable, to the people. Make sure people have access, and we're educating them about what type of food they should be eating. A lot of these things are cultural, so we have to really push our local culture, because we know we have so much local food that's nutritious for our bodies, rather than a lot of this kind
imported food,
greasy fast food culture that we've adopted.
Thank you for calling Spotlight. Go ahead, please.
Hello, good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night.
If you guys are able to farm the government, how important would alternative energy be to you guys, and where are you guys going to be next? When will you guys be coming to the East?
When
Okay,
would we?
Okay. What's your
Coming to
next
the east.
scheduled meeting, district meeting?
Saturday
And,
night
and
we're
what you
doing
going
this.
and what you going to do with about alternative energy? Thank you, Koala.
Alternative energy, we're all for it. We've already looked at research in terms of things as the possibilities of solar and wind, whether it's to supplement the government's grid or in terms of passing legislation that allows residents and businesses, again, to help them with their cost of
You
living.
support that legislation
We
to allow
support-
private people
We support that
yes,
because it's a win-win.
electricity
For,
back
it's
into
it's
the
a
grid.
win-win for the country because if, as a business, you're willing to invest into getting solar panels, that eases a burden on the main grid as well as helping to reduce your cost of operations and reduce consumer prices in your store. We're all for it.
And it's more efficient because we can't keep the power on right now. I mean, we're above capacity. I mean, you have a problem with any one of the generators, and people are going
It's
up
also-
without power.
It's also a new industry. You know, we talk about the tourism industry, we talk about financial industry. When America had the depression back in the 1930s, the computers came in as a new industry. Now, green technology is a new industry, and all people have to take hold. And we have to put legislation in place that all people are the forerunners and the owners of the business in this industry. So yes, we are all for alternative energy. The caller also asks about where we're going to be next. The next village mingle is going to be at Fat Hogs Bay right there by Fine Foods on Saturday night, 7 o'clock. And the mic is going to be going around, so come out, take the mic, and ask us the questions.
Okay, quickly, education. What's your education plan?
Well, our focus really is to focus on 3 key areas. You have to focus on improving the teaching. You have to make sure that students come to the classroom and they're given everything they need to be able to be prepared to learn. And you also have to reform the curriculum. I'll start with the curriculum. Dr. Penn headed a team, the curriculum reform project, and they produce a great curriculum, and that needs to be implemented. It focuses on holistic education, education children as a whole person. In terms of preparing students to learn, we have to ensure that students can hear properly, can see properly. They're getting tested to make sure that they have all of the cognitive abilities that they need to be able to learn. You have to ensure that their situation at home is not impacting on their ability to be able to learn in the classroom. We have to ensure that we have proper class sizes to make sure that they're given every opportunity to learn. Teachers have to be educated in different techniques or different styles in which students are able to learn. We have to make sure that they're qualified and that they have access to all the latest research, latest information on pedagogical techniques and so on and so forth. So, it's a comprehensive program. It's very difficult to speak about it,
In 5 minutes.
in 5 minutes, but it's comprehensive.
Okay, cool. We're following the 3 o'clock, obviously, and I want to thank y'all very much for coming and standing the pressure, standing the burn of the light.
Spotlight, yeah.
Yes. Each of you got 30 seconds to make a plea. Ladies first.
Well, we want to thank you for having us, Cromwell. What we want to say to the Virgin Islands community is that we want to have a serious dialogue about what the issues are in the country. We don't want to just talk about problems, we want to talk about solutions. And we're encouraging everyone, you can check out our website, www.ppavi.org. You'll find our speeches, articles that we have written. You can contact us through there, as well as in terms of asking questions and find out our schedule of events. We really need to change the dialogue and the conversation for this election season and beyond, because this is not just about elections, but this is the future of our country, and that's why all of us have gotten involved. So we're encouraging you to get involved in dialogue, pay attention to the issues and not just give in to the smoke and mirrors that comes along with our political season, and to vote for PPA, because this is not just about a change, but this is about a difference in our country.
I want to say that our philosophy is something we want to put out there to everyone. It's simple, it's to the point, it's in the acronyms that define us, PPA, People's Patriotic Alliance. Our first word is people, we are looking out for people. Patriots are people looking out for its people, and alliance means all of us has to come together under one accord to move this country in the right direction. We have heard all about the problems as we discussed some of them here tonight, and we'll continue to discuss them with you. As Shana said, we do want the solutions, but we want you to come together under our slogan, which is one country, moving in one direction. So in this election, put that at your forefront. One country, moving in one direction, and vote for all three of us to bring a difference and balance to the House of Assembly.
And yes, brothers and sisters, I want to thank all of you who viewed this program tonight. I want you to continue to listen to us, because this team, a team I'm proud to be a part of, is going to bring positive change to these Virgin Islands. Over the last few years that I've been living here, I've realized that we had a lot of problems that we need solved. And you need to ask yourselves out there, are you satisfied with how things are going in this territory? And if you're not satisfied with what's happening, you can't be afraid to cast a vote for change. And we're going to make not just any change, but positive change to the Virgin Islands. It's something new, it's something fresh, but it's a good seed, and when we plant it, it will grow. So cast a vote for change, support the People's Patriotic Alliance.
All right, thank you very much. Y'all didn't do too bad with the time. I have my stopwatch. Stopwatch. You went to a little bit, but it was great having you, and thank you very much for coming on Spotlight. We plan to have a candidates forum where we're going to take at large one at large representative from, one at large candidate from each persuasion, each party, the independent, PPA, NDP, VIP, POP, whoever whoever's out there. We want to have a discussion on economics and some of the other issues of human activity that we need to discuss. So hopefully we'll have one of you back on that panel. It's difficult getting everybody to come on. Some people, some parties got their issues, and some got their issues with me personally, and it's I don't know. But I'm glad that you guys had the courage to come on and really face the music. Thank you again for being my guest.
Thank you.
Next week, the spotlight is going to be on Preston Stout. He, well, the last I heard, he was running for he was a territorial candidate. The rumor is that he switched to the 1st district. I don't know how true that is, but there's a...
He announced yesterday.
He announced yesterday. Okay, so he's going to be in the 1st district. So we're going to talk about the 1st district and the general territory when Mr. Stout comes on under the spotlight next Tuesday. Make sure you tune in, don't miss it. This is, of course, your opportunity to question, and I thank you for the tremendous amount of questions that you asked tonight and the calls I received in the texts. So we really appreciate the participation, and we are hoping that you've been informed to begin to see the differences in the candidates and to make intelligent decisions based on the solutions to real issues in the territory. And that's the goal of Spotlight regarding having the candidates on for discussions. That's my only agenda, to raise the level of discussion, bring information to the public so you can make informed, intelligent decisions during the voting and the democratic process. Yes, voter registration continues. You can go down to the elections office and register to vote, those of you who have not yet registered to vote. And remember, you got to be in it to play. So if you don't register and vote, then you didn't make a say, and you got to take what you get. Tune in to JTV channel 55 Tuesdays at 8 p.m. and Sundays at 4:30 p.m. to watch Spotlight. Thank you for your words of encouragement, your suggestions and criticisms. Continue to email me at JTVSpotlight, and I've been getting quite a few emails, and I appreciate it. Sometimes I get back to you soon, sometimes it takes me a little longer, but keep the emails coming, the criticisms particularly. I like to see Ahmed Jurenka reminding you that when the spotlight is on, you see the facts. Peace and blessings.
This program is sponsored by the law firm of J.S. Archibald & Co. and by the trust company J.S. Archibald Trust Services Limited, both of Roadtown, Tortola, BVI.